One day, your phone stops ringing. Not completely, but enough for you to notice. The group chat gets quieter. The invitations become less frequent. The people you used to see every weekend start becoming people you used to know. And nobody tells you why. You haven't betrayed them. You haven't attacked them. You haven't done anything terrible. You simply started taking your life seriously. You started waking up earlier, training harder, studying longer, and suddenly you became difficult to recognize. But here's the question nobody asks. What if losing certain friendships isn't the tragedy you think it is? By the end of this video, you will understand why serious ambition can make your social circle smaller, how Stoicism can help you survive the loneliness without becoming bitter, and how Machiavellian strategic thinking can protect your goals without turning you into a manipulative person. Because sometimes you aren't losing people, you're losing access to the old version of yourself. There is a moment that almost every ambitious person eventually experiences. It usually isn't dramatic, nobody announces it. There is no soundtrack, no motivational speech. You simply get tired. Tired of saying, one day. Tired of wasting mornings. Tired of telling yourself you're capable of more while doing nothing about it. So you make a decision. Tomorrow will be different, and for once, you mean it. You wake up, you train, you read, you work. You stop spending every night online. You stop drinking every weekend. You stop chasing relationships that go nowhere. You start thinking about your future. And at first, your friends don't take you seriously. They laugh. Bro, relax. You've become boring. You're taking this way too seriously. Come out tonight. You can work tomorrow. And maybe you go, because deep down, you don't want to lose them. You want success, but you also want belonging. So you compromise, just this once, then again, and again, until you realize something horrifying. Every time you abandon your goals to maintain your relationships, you're teaching yourself that your future is less important than other people's approval. And eventually, you have to choose. The first thing you lose when you become serious about success isn't your friends, it's your tolerance for wasting time. That's different. You begin to notice how much of life disappears. 3 hours of scrolling, 4 hours of gaming, an entire Saturday spent drinking, conversations that go nowhere, complaints that repeat themselves, gossip about people nobody even knows. And suddenly you look at the clock and realize another day is gone. Seneca understood this thousands of years ago. He argued that people are not necessarily given too little time, they simply give too much of it away. And once you truly understand that, your relationships change. Because you start asking a dangerous question. What is this relationship costing me? Not financially, emotionally, mentally, strategically. What does being around this person turn you into? More disciplined or less? More courageous or more insecure? More focused or more distracted? Because here's something you need to understand. People don't only influence what you think, they influence what you consider normal. Look at your closest 5 people. Seriously, don't think about them emotionally. Think strategically. What do they talk about? What do they celebrate? What do they complain about? What do they do with their weekends? What do they think is normal? And now ask yourself, if I lived exactly like these people for the next 5 years, would I be proud of the person I became? That question alone can change your life. Eventually, someone will tell you, you've changed. And you know what? They're probably right. You have. But changing isn't automatically betrayal. A seed changes. A teenager changes. A body changes. A mind changes. A life changes. Growth requires change. The problem isn't that you've changed. The problem is whether you've changed for the right reasons. If you've become disciplined because you hate everyone, that's not strength. If you've become successful because you want revenge, that's not freedom. If you've become wealthy because you desperately need strangers to respect you, you'll never have enough, because your identity will still belong to other people. The Stoics understood this. Marcus Aurelius constantly reminded himself not to become arrogant, cruel, or obsessed with external approval. Your goal isn't to become superior. Your goal is to become self-governed. That's a completely different thing. Epictetus gave us one of the most powerful frameworks in philosophy. Some things are within your control, some aren't. Your discipline, your effort, your decisions, your character, yes, they're definitely within your control. But whether people understand you, whether your old friends approve, whether someone stays in your life forever, whether people celebrate your success, definitely not. So why are you spending your energy trying to control it? You don't need everyone to understand. You need to understand yourself. Here's one of the most valuable lessons you can learn. Stop announcing everything. You don't need to tell everyone you're changing. Don't announce your new discipline. Don't explain your 5-year plan to people who didn't ask. Don't tell everyone about your business before you built it. Work quietly, because there is a strange psychological trap in announcing your goals. The moment people congratulate you for what you're going to do, your brain gets some of the reward meant for actually doing it. And suddenly, the work feels less urgent. Protect your plans, not because everyone is your enemy, but because not everyone needs access to the blueprint. That's not manipulation, that's privacy. A house can have an open door and still have walls. And this is where Machiavelli becomes useful. Not the cartoon version, not manipulate everyone, not trust nobody, not destroy your enemies. That's not strategic thinking. That's insecurity wearing a suit. The useful lesson is much simpler. Understand human nature. People have incentives. People have fears. People have insecurities. People have ambitions. And sometimes your growth will make someone uncomfortable. Not because you've harmed them, but because your discipline reminds them of their own lack of discipline. Your progress reminds them of what they haven't done. Your confidence exposes their insecurity. Your boundaries remove their access, and suddenly, your success becomes uncomfortable for them. You must understand this without becoming paranoid. Don't assume everyone is against you, but also don't be naive enough to believe everyone has your best interests at heart. Observe. 1. The cheerleaders. They genuinely want you to win. Your success doesn't threaten them. They celebrate your progress without needing to be the center of it. Protect these people. 2. The passengers. They aren't bad people. They simply aren't going where you're going. They may not understand your obsession. They may not share your goals. That's okay. Don't hate them. Just don't let them determine your direction. 3. The anchors. These are different. They repeatedly pull you toward your worst habits. They mock every improvement. They attack every boundary. They want the old version of you back. Not because they necessarily hate you, but because the old version was more convenient. And here's the important part. You don't need to destroy these people. You need distance. There is a difference between revenge and boundaries. Now comes the part nobody puts on Instagram, the silence. You stop going out. You stop answering every invitation. The group chat gets quieter. Your weekends become strangely empty. At first, it feels peaceful. Then it starts to hurt, because humans are social creatures. And suddenly you wonder, did I make a mistake? Am I becoming antisocial? Am I wasting my youth? Maybe they're right. Maybe you should go back. Maybe you should become the old version again. At least you weren't alone. But listen carefully. Loneliness and solitude are not the same thing. Loneliness says, nobody wants me. Solitude says, I am learning to be with myself. You need to learn the second, because if you cannot tolerate being alone, you will accept almost any company, and that is far more dangerous than loneliness. The strongest person isn't the person who has the biggest social circle. It's the person who can walk away from a room without needing the room to chase them. They can say no, they can leave, they can disappoint people, they can be misunderstood, and still sleep peacefully at night. That's Stoic strength, not emotional numbness, emotional independence. You can love people without needing their approval. You can miss someone without going back. You can care about someone without giving them unlimited access to you. You can forgive someone and still keep your distance. That's maturity. But now I need to warn you about something. Because there is a trap waiting for ambitious people. You become disciplined, then arrogant. You become focused, then contemptuous. You become independent, then isolated. You become strategic, then paranoid. You start thinking, I don't need anyone. Everyone is fake. People are weak. I'll succeed alone. Stop. That's not strength. That's armor. And if you wear armor long enough, you forget what it feels like to be human. Stoicism never meant becoming emotionless. It meant mastering your response to emotion. You can feel pain, you can love, you can miss people, and still move forward. That's harder than pretending you don't care. Here's something nobody tells you. Sometimes you don't need to repair your old social circle. You need to build a new one. Go where disciplined people are. Train with people who train. Read around people who read. Build around people who build. Study around people who study. Join communities where ambition is normal instead of strange. Because environment matters. If everyone around you thinks your goals are ridiculous, you will constantly have to defend them. But when you enter a room where everyone is building something, you don't have to explain yourself. You simply belong. Your new friends might not look like your old friends. They might come from different backgrounds, different countries, different careers, different personalities. But they'll share one thing: they respect growth. Here's the question I want you to remember. Who do I become around this person? Not, do they make me laugh? Not, have we known each other for 10 years? Not, will they be offended if I leave? Ask, who do I become around them? Do you become courageous, disciplined, honest, calm, ambitious? Or do you become insecure, lazy, reactive, addicted, distracted? Your relationships are environments, and environments shape behavior. Choose carefully. There is another trap, and it's incredibly seductive. Revenge. You start thinking, one day they'll see. One day they'll regret it. One day I'll be so successful they won't be able to ignore me. Maybe they will, but that's still a trap, because you're still working for them. Every morning you wake up thinking about their reaction. Every achievement becomes a message. Every success becomes evidence. Every failure becomes humiliation. They're still living in your head. You haven't escaped them. You've simply turned their opinion into fuel. Don't do that. Your ambition should be bigger than revenge. Work because you respect your potential. Build because you want freedom. Become disciplined because you want control over your life, not because you want somebody else to feel small. Your success should be your liberation, not your revenge. There will be a night when you're exhausted. The project isn't working. The money isn't there. Your friends are having fun. Someone posts a story. They're all together, and you're sitting alone. For a second, you'll wonder whether you've chosen the wrong path. That's normal. You're human. But then ask yourself, what happens if I quit? Maybe life gets easier for a while. But 5 years later, you may look back and wonder, what could I have become? That question is far more painful because failure hurts, but so does unrealized potential. And there is a special kind of regret that comes from knowing you could have tried, but you didn't. Imagine meeting yourself 10 years from now, the person you could become, stronger, calmer, more capable, financially independent, healthy, disciplined, experienced. Not perfect, but proud. Now imagine that person looking at you. They know everything you're going through. They remember the lonely nights, the rejection, the failures, the friends who disappeared, the days you wanted to quit, and they ask you one question. Did you keep going? What do you want the answer to be? One day, the loneliness changes. You stop seeing it as punishment. You start seeing it as training. The empty weekends become time. The silence becomes clarity. The lack of invitations becomes freedom. You learn, you build, you train, you think. You become comfortable with yourself. And eventually, you meet people who fit the new version of you. Not because you desperately search for them, but because you became the kind of person who naturally attracts people with similar values. And suddenly, your circle may be smaller, but it is stronger. One real friend is worth more than 50 acquaintances. One person who tells you the truth is worth more than 100 people who tell you what you want to hear. One person who celebrates your success without jealousy is rare. When you find them, value them. So if your circle is getting smaller, don't panic, but don't automatically assume you're on the right path either. Look at yourself honestly. Are you becoming disciplined or arrogant? Focused or obsessed? Independent or isolated? Strategic or paranoid? Successful or simply desperate for validation? Be brutally honest, because the goal isn't to become someone who needs nobody. The goal is to become someone who can stand alone and therefore choose people freely. That's power. You are young, you have time, but not unlimited time. Every year you're becoming someone. The question is, who? The person who follows the crowd? The person who lives for approval? The person who spends his 20s trying to make everyone else comfortable? Or the person who decides, I am going to find out what I'm capable of? Maybe people will laugh, let them. Maybe people will doubt you, let them. Maybe some friends will leave, wish them well. Maybe you'll spend some nights alone. Use them, read, think, build, train, learn, become dangerous in your competence, but peaceful in your character. Protect your goals, protect your time, protect your attention. Choose your friends carefully, and never sacrifice your future just to keep your past comfortable. And if you're watching this, and you're in that strange period where you're becoming someone new, I want you to know something. You are not behind. You are not broken. And you don't need to have everything figured out. You just need to keep your promises to yourself. One day at a time, one workout, one page, 1 hour of focused work, one difficult conversation, one uncomfortable decision. One day, then another. That's how a life changes, not overnight, quietly, when nobody is watching. And if this is the kind of content you want to keep building your mind with, subscribe. Not because you need another channel filling your feed. Subscribe if you want to become part of a community of people who are trying to become stronger, more disciplined, more thoughtful, and more capable, without losing their humanity in the process. Because that's the goal here, not empty motivation, not fake superiority, not pretending we're above everyone else. Becoming better, together. You may have fewer people beside you today. That's okay. Just make sure you never become someone you wouldn't want to walk beside.